Yes, everybody, Ross and the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. Graham Potter has just finished his press conference ahead of the Brighton game. And actually, do you know what? It was actually quite an interesting one today. I think we saw um, what's the word? Not personality, but a bit more behind the curtain, so to speak, in terms of it wasn't all sort of stockish answers. There was a lot of uh, better questions, I think, from some of the journalists. Obviously, there's lots to talk about. The fact is we haven't been playing well. Niclas his comments, Jared Bowen being linked to moves away. And it was quite interesting. So let's go through it chronologically. He was asked about recent results and how the poorness of the results, and the Southampton game particularly, and the fans booing. Because I understand the fans' frustration. You have to look at it at two levels. It's a home game. We want to win, and we didn't. The performance wasn't great, and we are where we are in the table. Then you have to look at the bigger picture, and it's a result of having to deal with that. And as I've said, I'm in the 40 or so games before I arrived. The team conceded a lot of goals. The fans are upset, and I'm the same. But at the same time, we played well at Anfield, and we've been competitive in all games. We're not playing how we want to play, but to look at the bigger picture, it's not so straightforward to change things. You have to accept things and be up for the challenge. I want to support the players who have been brilliant and will fight together. And he was very much on the offensive today, talking about, it's not been up to it, but but look, it's not necessarily excuses, but there was a lot of, okay, well, let's talk about what happened before I came. I conceded a lot of goals, and now I'm trying to change things round. And indeed, there was a question about late goals as well coming up a bit later on. Asked for Niclas Füllkrug. There was a couple of questions, but the main one was the first one, and asked about what he thought of his comments and stuff like that. And he goes, sometimes you have to understand that after a game, everyone's emotional. It should be that way, but when you're a leader, you have to accept the emotion and put things into perspective. There may be various factors, and that we can also play on the players' minds. Together, we have to work and find solutions and give the fans something better. Niclas wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's entitled to his opinions. For me, it's better to have conversations in private. You have to be able to be honest and to think about the team as well. I think Moose mentioned a bit later on, he goes, oh, so you're happy for Niclas to have an opinion, but as long as it's behind closed doors or something like that. It was a bit a little bit narky about it. And I understand totally, where he's trying to come from and where Falkirk was coming from. It's going to be interesting to see on Saturday if he's in the side or not. For me, I think not in the side, that's a bad deal. That's a bad deal, to be honest, because I think then there was a lot of fan sentiment towards Niclas before and post that interview. So I think by him not being included would be a mistake. A mistake, unless there's a game plan for him not to, if it is for playing a certain way and stuff. But for me, if he's dropped completely, that will give you the answer in terms of how Graham is taking it. And actually, to be honest, I want a manager to show their teeth sometimes. And he's been seen as a very nice guy. Nicey. But I want to see a manager who's got a bit of a backbone and can make those tough decisions. And you don't do what you do on my watch. This is the consequences. But I'm in two minds. Interesting. We'll talk about team news in a minute because about Edson Alvarez. Obviously back to Brighton on Saturday. Asked about that and asked about getting back into Brighton, going back to there. He says, I have nothing but respect, love, and gratitude for my time. They're great people, great memories. Obviously, I want to win, but I always look fondly on my time there. And interestingly, he was then asked about Brighton's form. I think us and Brighton and I think it's Southampton and someone else haven't won a game in the last 5 games. There's 4 sides, and asked about how Brighton's form has sort of fallen off a cliff. He was on the defensive again. He definitely was. If he was a cricketer, he'd be playing very defensive play, because he said in the Premier League, lots of teams have different stats, but it's so tough. They're not in a great run, but they can happen because of various factors. Historically, the club has been successful because they've been able to look past obvious conclusions. Basically, he said, if you win, you're great. You lose, you're not. That's basically what the traditional football. Actually, there's loads more stats behind it. But he reckons they'll be fine, but obviously not this weekend, hopefully. But that's what he was saying. So the reason Brighton probably did, because they stayed with us and stayed with the project. And, I took over and they were 4th bottom, and then I left them at 4th from top. and I was given the chance and given the time, because they maybe sometimes look behind the result in terms of the performance, or maybe the stats behind it, to show that there was improvements. There was definitely a different tact in terms of how Graham handled the questions today, and particularly about late goals. There's a number of factors. To go to Goodison now, it's difficult. When you're one up, you probably need a second. In the Premier League, always vulnerable. At Liverpool, we played well, maybe just switched off a little bit at the right time against a good side. Southampton was slightly different. Probably our performances over 90 minutes didn't deserve any more, but we were close to getting the win. It's very complicated. When we came in, we were conceding early goals, and now it's late goals. He likened the Premier League to having a small blanket. You pull it up because your top's cold and your legs are cold, so you pull it back down and your top's cold again. He says, so you're sort of trying to find that balance. He guess it's very tough for different reasons. In terms of team news, you asked about Todibo. Obviously, again, not another 90 minutes for him at the weekend. Injuries play a part. I think he arrived late to pre-season as well. Team's been full of transition. The club invested a lot of money, but if you look at consistent minutes, it's not been easy. I've enjoyed working with him, and he'll continue to come back. In terms of team news itself, looks like the only one who could be potentially out, apart from our long terms, is going to be Edson. He's still out with his back, and hopefully be back next week. Although what was interesting was the back. If we're led to be believed, he pulled out of the squad because of the back injury. It wasn't because of the club. He said, "Oh, my back's hurting, I'm not playing." So whether that's been assessed and it is a deeper injury than previous, I don't know. Aaron should be back, and other than that, it's how it was. So I would assume we'll have quite a similar side to the side that played on Saturday. Potentially, maybe possibly back to the back three. We'll talk about that in the starting 11 show on Saturday. And then he was asked about looking ahead. Obviously, 5 Premier League games left, including this one. Summer business, what's going down, what's happening, who's coming in, who's coming out. Is it going to be a big summer? Here he goes. You have to think about where you are, where you want to be. Again, it's about working together and being responsible. In every window, you want to improve the team, and that will continue. We have to make sure decisions to improve from where we are now. In my job at Brighton, as I said, it was taking the team full from bottom to the top, to full from top, and I have experience of what's required. It's not a quick fix, but that's the challenge. And then I think Moose asked the last question about Bowen and saying, would it be a case of selling Bowen in the summer in order to get money to then reinvest in half a dozen players in your lot, the players you want? And he goes, not with Jared, basically. Sort of. We know it's probably going to happen with Kudus, but not with Jared. I think he didn't say that as such, but that was reading between the lines. And that was it. That was the Graham Potter press conference. No, it's not Hammer's headlines. That'll be later on. The Graham Potter. I thought it was actually quite a good press conference at once. I thought there was some slightly more taxing questions, which went beyond the usual stock answers, and that was what was funny when they said, right, okay, cameras off now, we're going to do the press stuff. Potter said something just as the volume went down, well, you two can shut up, jokingly at probably Moose and stuff, because I think Moose has been a bit trying to elicit some sort of response out of him with some of his comebacks, and I think he had a word, or there was a little joke off the camera afterwards. But that's it. As I said, Hammer said, last week back later on, talking about Kudus, talking about Souček, talking about Ricard Rioch from Palmeiras, and tomorrow we start the great fun that is the build up towards the game on Saturdays. Take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, and come on, you bloody irons. Much love. Bye, Ziway.